and welcome to From the Mezzanine. I'm your host, Lindsay Stone. From the Mezzanine is the Broadway podcast for the Broadway fans, where we talk about all things Broadway news, Broadway grosses, and let's be honest, all of the tea and gossip that happens week to week in the Broadway stratosphere. Hello, everybody. How are we doing? I am doing so freaking fantastic. It has been a very big Broadway week for me. I saw 2 shows, one of which I'm declaring it right now, and I hate to say this, and I've never said this before, ever, but this is the worst show I have ever seen on Broadway. And I hope you know I am saying that with a broken heart. I don't like saying that. I don't like saying just blatantly disparaging things towards a show. However, this show, I was miserable sitting down and watching. And so we will get into that. And then on the contrary, on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, I saw a pretty dang amazing show, and I'm excited to get into it. It's just you and I this episode. No Broadway besties joining me today, which I miss them. However, I've also missed, it just being us here. So let's get into it. I feel so bad to say that The Heart of Rock and Roll was the worst show I have ever seen on Broadway. I went into it so optimistic. I love Mackenzie Kurtz, and she was great. The cast did what they could with the content that they were given, but altogether, this show was a piece of trash. And oh my God, y'all, I literally feel so bad saying these things. I would never say these things if they were not true. But for me and for my experience, we sat at the front of the balcony. We only paid, I think it was like $19.78, like $19.78, something to do with Huey Lewis and the News, because Heart of Rock and Roll is a musical. It's a jukebox musical with Huey Lewis and the News as music. So think Power of Love. There were actually like probably 3 or 4 songs that I recognized. Let's see. What are some other? Hip to Be Square. That was like a little bit familiar. What are some other ones? Do You Believe in Love? I don't think I know that one. Yeah, most of these songs I didn't know. Maybe I only knew like 2 songs, but mainly it's The Power of Love. I feel like there was another one that I really knew. Anyways, it's starring Casey Cott and Mackenzie Kurtz at the forefront, so I thought it was going to be really good. Obviously, the cast did what they could to salvage this show, but altogether, guys, when I'm sitting in a show that is altogether completely disappointing, all I can think about is the fact that Sweeney Todd is playing across the street. A show like The Outsiders is playing across the street. Wicked is playing across the street. But this is taking up Broadway space. I feel like crap. I never, ever am this anti a show, but good night. It was awful altogether. If you know this music, if you like this music, maybe you would have a different experience. But I've sat in jukebox musicals where I don't really know a lot of the songs, i.e. Hell's Kitchen, and I still loved it. So I don't think that was the issue. The issue was the story and the book, but mainly the story. So it follows the Stone family, which I can relate to. I am a Stone myself. And so I thought that was just like, a fun little tidbit. I was like, oh, this is fun. Like the entire show is about this family that owns a cardboard company. After I left the show, I was telling Reed, my editor / fiance, who y'all know, I was telling him the plot of the story, and it sounded like I was out of my mind. Let me tell you guys what the plot is. So the Stone family owns a cardboard company, and Casey Cott's character is working for the cardboard company, but in like the first song, he gets laid off or fired, I guess, because he made a huge sell that the company could not afford. And Mackenzie Kurtz, she plays the daughter of the owner of the company. And so obviously that there's going to be some sort of love story between them. Anyways, everybody goes to a like shipping industry conference that's in Chicago, and you've got the bubble wrap people over there, the cardboard people over here, the tape company over there. It's like a shipping conference that everybody has attended. Like, guys, I feel delusional telling you this because you're like, this is the plot of a Broadway show, right? Anyways, Casey Cott's character is trying to get back into the company. And so he's trying to schmooze with this person who is the CEO of IDEA, a Swedish furniture company, which is obviously a parody of IKEA. And so he's like, if I get this sale with IDEA, then I'll be back in the company because this would do huge things for this company. And the Stone Family Cardboard Company is going under. And so they need this. Anyways, so you've got this really colorful character in the Swedish manufacturer dude that owns IDEA. And he brings like a little bit of humor. But for me, every piece of humor pretty much fell flat. Other than there's this HR lady who is kind of bringing Casey Cott's character to the conference, and she was really funny, and she made a lot of HR jokes. Like at one point they're trying to close the deal with the IDEA CEO in the sauna. And the HR lady, she's like, well, if everybody's getting naked for a meeting, I have to be here. And that was funny. But other than that, they were aiming to be funny and aiming to have some comedic elements. And your girl, I always say, I am the person you want in your audience. You want me to cry? I'm crying. You want me to laugh? I am laughing. You want me to dance in my seat? I'm dancing in my seat. I am everybody's ideal audience member. But for this, holy cow, it was rough, y'all. It was really hard to find the humor in the jokes that they were saying because they were not resonating. Anyways, to go on, of course, he closes the deal. But at the same time, Casey Cott's character is a rock star. Okay, see, right? It's good. It's going all over the place. He's a rock star and his band is like, come on, get back in the band. And he's like, no, I'm trying to be a professional. I'm trying to work for the cardboard company. And the band's like, dude, this is your dream. You gotta follow your dream. And everybody in the band was super like kitschy band members. You had like the surfer bruh, and then you had like the biker gang looking dude who was like really hardcore. And it was just too stereotypical, too kitschy. It felt so bad. Probably the coolest part of the show, and this is saying something because it lasts maybe 30 seconds, is whenever they're in the convention, the bubble wrap booth pulls out a ton of bubble wrap across the stage and everybody does a dance number on top of the bubble wrap, kind of like a tap-esque number. And so they're tapping on the bubble wrap and it sounds really satisfying and cool and it's fun to watch. Other than that, no, everything fell short. And I'm sorry, I cannot believe that I'm coming on here and I am saying all of these disparaging things. I feel like typically if there's a show that I know I don't like, I will not go and see it. And on the podcast, I'll just be like, I didn't go and see it, so I can't say it was really, really bad. But this is a show that I saw that was truly really bad, and I have to come here and tell y'all about it. It felt so much like Jukebox get a bad rap because sometimes it feels like, okay, we need to work in Empire State of Mind into Hell's Kitchen, so let's create the scenario where that song can fit in. And where Hell's Kitchen, I feel like they did it right. This show was like, okay, we've got to fit in this random song about somebody's dad dying, so let's make his dad die so that he can sing this sad ballad that's going to pull on the heartstrings of the audience. It really felt like, okay, so here's Huey Lewis's discography, and here are all of his big songs, so let's mold and shape the show no matter how absurd and weird and random it gets to fit the music. And that is just so inappropriate and not the way you want to shape a show because it feels disingenuous, it feels inauthentic, and I feel like leaves the characters being like what is this material I'm working with? Literally, guys, probably like 3/4 of the way through the musical, Casey Cott's character is battling. Should I stay with the cardboard company or should I go back to my band and follow my dream and be a rock star? And you're looking at the band and you're like, obviously, I think he's going to choose the band because of course you choose your dream, but he's in love with Mackenzie Kurt's character and she's at the cardboard company. What is he going to do? And so in one scene, he literally is like with his band and they have this beautiful moment. The band bought his guitar that used to belong to his dad and they give it to him. And he's like, you know what? My dad couldn't follow his dream. He left his dream to raise me. So I am going to follow my dream. And he tells his bandmates, I'm in. I'm following my dream with you guys. I kid you not, in the very next scene, y'all, he's with Mackenzie Kurtz and he's like, yeah, I'm not joining the band. Like, it's just like that. Like, it's 1 second, you're like, okay, the decision's been made. Like, he's going with the band. And then in the next scene, it's like, I'm not doing the band. I'm with you. And it's just like, where was the character development? Where's the character arc here? We didn't see him get to that point. It was just boom, boom, boom. And now we're singing The Power of Love and it's over. So, okay. If I could give it any good remarks, I would say I liked the fact that it was set in the 80s because that's fun. I feel like that's kind of what's happening over there at Back to the Future. But other than that, like, we don't have a lot of 80s content. Like, you see, guys, I'm pulling at teeth here trying to find a good thing to say about it. But I did think that the way that they did the makeup and the costuming for the 80s was interesting to look at. The second act opening song was really fun. It was, let me look at it real quick, but it was very like 80s fitness instructor kind of dance. And that guy, I will give him a shout out because he was an ensemble member and he was amazing. I really loved his performance. He was a major standout. I think some of you guys might know him from TikTok, but he led that fitness number. Please tell me that they have his photo in here. Okay. Yes. Tommy Bracco. I think some of you probably know him, but Tommy Bracco, if you're watching on YouTube, here he is in the playbill. He was an excellent ensemble member. I believe this might be his Broadway debut. Get him in something else after this closes because I'm sure it's going to close really soon. Me and Bryn were, making our predictions about how long it will last. This is going to open probably next week, I think. I want to say it was like April 22nd or something that it's opening. After those reviews come out, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see what they are. Well, I'm not excited. I'm anxious to see what they are, because I assume that they're going to be incredibly poor. But I bet it'll last 3 weeks. And I say that because How to Dance did not last long. I want to say it lasted, just over a month? I don't think this will outlast that. I think that this will try as it may and close. Bryn said it'll last till July. I don't see that. I don't think it'll go past Tony's for sure, but they might just try to stick it out until Tony's. But I'm not even going to make a Tony prediction. None of this is going to be nominated for a Tony. Not the set. The set was so community theater. I was telling Bryn after we saw it, I was like, if I even saw that show at a community theater, I wouldn't have enjoyed it. I would have been like, dang, that was kind of a sad community theater production. Not because of the talent on stage, y'all. I want to get that across. This cast is capable of so much more than what this show is letting it do. Okay, I fear that I am going too far. I sincerely do not want to just crap on a show just to be like mean and stuff, because y'all understand where I'm at with this, and I feel really awful to be so unhappy and speak on my platform about a show being so terrible, because I know that it takes a tremendous amount of work to get on stage. So I can't imagine this cast working so hard to mount their show on Broadway just for people to say that it was awful. So that's all I'm going to say. I feel for the cast. I truly hope they find other work because the cast is super talented. Mackenzie Kurtz is one of the most talented people on Broadway, period, point blank. I will say, though, a lot of people on TikTok don't hate this show like I do, which I'm really surprised by. Y'all, I was counting down the songs. I got my playbill out in the middle of Act 2 to count how many songs were left because I was like, I gotta get out of here. Like, I can't. This was the only show that I didn't, and I will never do this. But at intermission, I said I would be okay to go. Like, I am not getting anything from this show. It is not servicing me in any way. If I were ever to leave a show at intermission, this is the closest I've ever been to it. But to talk about my point earlier, people on TikTok are calling it campy. They're saying that it knows what it is. And it's funny because, it's so comfortable in what it is. It knows that it's being cheesy. It knows that it's, and I do not agree with that, but I understand what they are saying. I think certain shows can get away with being overly cheesy and not making a lot of sense when it knows what it is. That's exactly what I said about Anne Juliet. I said, this is a stupid show, but it knows that, and it's playing with that, and the energy is there, and the set and the performers and everybody is bought into the fact that they're doing this absurd show, and it makes it fun. This show does not do that at all to me. It's like the set changes. You go from like the cardboard company to the band in their mom's basement, and like it's not overdone enough for it to be extra. You know, I hope that makes sense, but Anne Juliet is so in your face and it's so wild and crazy. This is not like that. It seems sad. It seems super low budget. And I don't think that you can equate something being campy to when it's really just low budget and mounted on Broadway before it was ready. Whew. Okay, guys, go meet me at the stage door if you want to hear more remarks about this, and I will get into the weeds over on the Patreon. But I just don't feel good about putting that out to the general public because you'll get my gist. Some people are enjoying it. Some people are calling it campy. But I will also say that theater was very, very empty. We were in the front row of the balcony, and I bet the balcony was probably 40% full. I don't think it was halfway full. So they are not selling well. They're not doing well. So I also just don't want to beat a show when it's down at all. So those are my thoughts on Heart of Rock and Roll. Mackenzie Kurtz, she's unreal. Casey Codd had a lovely voice. Neither of their characters were developed enough to be nominated for Tonys. But I do see a future in their careers. This was certainly not career ending for everybody in this show. I think everybody is capable. I know everybody is capable of finding success on Broadway, just not here. Okay, that is my recap of the worst show that I've seen on Broadway, y'all. Oh man, I feel so bad because I want to see our industry prosper. I want to see shows just excel and sell out, and I want to see the Broadway community behind a show and you know, pushing it forward and supporting it. And nothing is better than seeing a show and being like, this is my show. I'm backing this show till the end of time. And so that's the feeling that I love, and I literally hate disparaging a show. So I'm done with that for now. Let's talk about a show that was so amazing that I saw this week, The Outsiders. Thank you to Bryn, Broadway bestie Bryn, shout out for rushing this show for us. I want to say she got there at 8:20 or so, and we got the 30 under 30 tickets, so they were $30. We were in the box. We were in the left bottom box. And it was a fantastic view. We missed like tiny little things because the show really does utilize the entire stage. And so we missed a couple of things, but it was not enough to affect our experience whatsoever. So where do I begin with this show? I have been anticipating this show for months now. The first I heard of it was that Angelina Jolie was a producer. Okay, cool. That kind of got me a little interested. Then they released the cast, and then they released Great Expectations, the first song. And is it the first song in the show? I don't know. The first song that they released was Great Expectations. And I was like, this is different. I can get behind this. I really like the style of the vocals in that song. And so I've been following it. Then they put up the marquee with this photo, if you're watching on YouTube, a photo of all of the guys hugging each other. It's giving One Direction. Which album? I can't remember what album it is where they're all hugging each other like that, but it is literally like a One Direction album. Anyways, and I was like, oh snap, these men are gorgeous. I'm excited. And that's when I started saying, yeah, this is about to be the next Newsies. This is about to be the next big girly crush show on Broadway. And then we saw the opening night. Like we went to the like outside of the theater, and we saw the boys in person, and I posted on TikTok a video of that, and it already has like 29,000 views, I want to say. Some of the boys even retweeted the video, and they're all in the comments down there. It's pretty funny. But that popped off, and I think that kind of spurred a lot of people being like, oh snap, this is about to be a huge deal. and they are all right because it deserves to be a huge deal. It was a beautifully executed show. It felt very themed. So it's set in Tulsa, Oklahoma, around these guys who are the greasers, and they are like a brotherhood. But then there's also the Socs, who are the more preppy side of town kids. And there's, this rivalry between the two, of course. It's very West Side Story in that matter. It's actually a very West Side Story in a lot of ways. So just kind of think that. But there's a lot of huge plot points that are very different than West Side Story and that I had forgotten. I'd read the book. I'd seen the movie ages ago. But I had forgotten a lot about the plot of this show. So I was super surprised when some of the big things happened. And I was so caught up in their characters. I think that each of them, oh my God, executed beautifully. They were their characters. They just felt so right. It was a very genuine performance from each and every person in this cast. Let's talk set. It was iconic. They are on a gravel stage. If you are sitting in the front row, just know there's going to be gravel kicked up in your face. There's going to be water that is splattered all over you. And there is some crowd work, let's say, that these guys do. And I think it would be really fun to sit in the front row, but at the same time, I think it's a little too much of an immersive experience for me. It was kind of crazy because, I'm telling you, the stage is probably like sitting on an inch of gravel, and it's loose gravel. So when they're doing their dances and everything, they are just thrusting that gravel into the audience. It's wild. It's crazy. And you just see the audience like tense up and like have to get it off their shirt and stuff. It's pretty unreal the way that they did that. It's super, super duper unique, but it's also super fitting to the show. Overall, the set was gorgeous. In a way, it was somewhat minimalistic. They would utilize tires and wooden panels to symbolize a table. And it was a very adaptive prop stage set sort of idea. And I really, really liked that aspect of it. It felt super rugged, super country. And I think that the vision was executed flawlessly with the set. It immersed you in it. You felt like you were in the 60s in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the middle of nowhere. And with these guys who just have this bond, and they are so powerful and so independent. And the guy who played Pony Boy, good Lord, if he is not nominated for that Tony, that will be so wrong. So Brody Grant plays Pony Boy Curtis. He has got an incredibly unique voice. It is kind of indie, and also it does have a country twang to it. It is beautiful. It's very different than what you typically hear on Broadway, especially in like a Broadway tenor. And so I just really liked that aspect of his voice, and they all kind of had that same rugged vocal style that fit the music so well. The music was gorgeous. The book was beautiful. This show is one of the first shows that has come to Broadway in this season that fully knows who it is, what it's trying to offer the audience, and it executes it flawlessly. This cast of characters are so strong. And I just think that this is one of the first shows of the season that didn't feel like it was rushed to come. It feels so genuinely like it was ready for this. I think it's going to be a huge contender at the Tonys this year. I don't know how it couldn't be. The book was amazing. The music was amazing. The set was amazing. The cast was amazing. Check down the list. It did not in any way feel lackluster. It delivered what it was supposed to deliver flawlessly. So thank you, The Outsiders. I can't say enough good things about it. I have a crush on each and every one of you, and y'all are so talented, and I am rooting for y'all at the Tonys. I do think that it is going to be a strong contender against Gatsby and Suffs. At this point, those are the only new shows that have like recently debuted on Broadway. I think those are the strongest out of the season right now. You've got, Water for Elephants. Literally, no, I can't imagine that Water for Elephants would outplay The Outsiders. But we're going to get our Tony nominees very soon at the end of this month, guys. I am so excited. I am so excited to see who all is going to be nominated. I'm so excited to predict with you guys on the podcast. I cannot wait. It is going to be huge. I'm so looking forward to it. But that is my Broadway recap for the week. Can't say enough good things about The Outsiders. If you're not already planning on seeing Heart of Rock and Roll, I don't know. I don't know. If you like Huey Lewis and the News, whatever. Their tickets are cheap, right? I think that their average ticket sale last week was like $34. So if you're curious, which I always am, when I see that a show is like really, quote, air quotes, bad on Broadway, it almost makes me more curious to go and see it. But I also don't want to spend a whole lot of money on doing that because it's likely not going to be worth it. Anyways, let's head on into our Broadway grosses, everybody. So this is for the week ending on April 14th. I'm excited to look at this because last week we had quite some shakeups. So Lion King is number 1, Hamilton is 2, Wicked is 3, Cabaret is number 4. That is a huge jump from last week. They are doing so well. Their average ticket price is $231. So that is why it is so high. They are at 100% capacity. Cabaret, snaps to you. Amazing. Congratulations. I really wouldn't have thought this. I feel like their marketing is really scarce. I'm not seeing a lot of stuff all around the city like I typically do. Gatsby, on the other hand, Gatsby is everywhere. But I haven't really seen much about Cabaret. So I am surprised that they're selling out. But it's a recognizable name. Of course, you've got some Hollywood stars in the cast, so it all makes sense. And it is still in previews. So that's also insane that it is in previews. And it is number 4 on the grosses, beating out Sweeney, beating out Merrily We Roll Along. That's pretty wild. MJ is 5. Merrily We Roll Along is 6. So Cabaret is outrun Merrily We Roll Along. That's kind of surprising. I'm surprised that Eddie Redmayne is outplaying Daniel Radcliffe on Broadway. But it could just be because it's new. Obviously, Merrily was at the very tip top of the ranks whenever it opened. But it's also crazy to look at the fact that like Wicked is number 3, Cabaret is number 4. But Wicked has sold 15,000 seats last week and Cabaret only sold 7,000, and they're that close in rank. That's wild. Okay, yeah, so Merrily is 6, Aladdin is 7, Moulin Rouge is 8. They have been bumped down now that Cabaret has entered the chat. Sweeney Todd is 9. It's really good for them. They had 92% capacity. I think it's a great place to be. The Wiz is 10. My gosh, they are selling so well. This isn't a story, but The Wiz opened on Broadway last week and they did not get good reviews. They really, really were underwhelming. A lot of people said that it was a maximalist production and that it just wasn't, like, it was too much. It was overdone. So anyways, I probably won't be seeing that show. I was surprised that it got bad reviews considering it's number 10 in the grosses. It's doing better than a lot of the newcomers this season. Harry Potter is 11. So this is like a wild, wild week. The fact that Harry Potter is now bumped out and they only had 84%. What happened? That's so weird. Okay, let's go down to like where the newcomers are to see how they are doing. So the next newcomer is the Who's Tommy. That's crazy. They had 84% capacity. That's not great. Okay, let's go down further. Then we have Water for Elephants below them, 72%. And then we have Great Gatsby, which had 93%. Still in previews, y'all. So maybe that's why it's not higher. Hell's Kitchen is below that. Hadestown is below that. The Outsiders is below that. The Outsiders is selling 99% capacity. Pretty good. Notebook is below them. So Notebook is turning out to do kind of the worst out of the newcomers at 84% capacity. Below them is Suffs, but it hadn't opened yet, and they're at 98%, so that's not bad. And one of our stories is going to be about that. And then Heart of Rock and Roll is at the very bottom, guys. So below all of the plays, below some of the way bigger theaters, or way smaller theaters, excuse me, is Heart of Rock and Roll. And it had 74% capacity, and get this, it only grossed $214,000. Meanwhile, to give you a comparison, our number 10 of the week sold like just over $1 million. So the fact that it sold $214,000, that is definitely not nearly enough to sustain it on Broadway, which is why I think it's gonna stay open for 3 weeks. If that, guys, if that. Okay, let's head on into our Broadway news of this week. Our first story is that we got some really, really surprising news. There's going to be a new Romeo and Juliet revival. Okay, that part's not surprising. Romeo and Juliet is always in circulation on and off Broadway. However, the cast is surprising. Rachel Zegler is coming to Broadway. Guys, I have gone through my ups and downs with Rachel Zegler. She has had quite the online persona. A lot of people do not like her. It all spurred from her Snow White press tour, which, where is Snow White? Why hasn't it come out yet? I think it might be coming out in like 2025 now, but they filmed it years ago. Anyways, she was doing all of this press and she was saying really like out of touch things, just like kind of hating on the origin of Snow White, and just a lot of people didn't like her. She was coming off kind of bratty, and I feel like what a lot of people probably coin as like theater kid Rachel Berry attitude, just like she's a know-it-all and she's too good for it, but like it's like, girl, come back down to earth, right? But I love Rachel Zegler. I think she's one of the biggest talents of our generation. I would put her right there with like the Renee Rapps of the theater world. She's incredible. So I am super excited that she is a part of this Romeo and Juliet revival. She will be starring opposite of Kit Connor, who apparently a lot of people know from Heartstopper, which is kind of fun because of course Joe Locke, the other star of Heartstopper, is over there on Sweeney Todd. Literally like everybody is obsessed with him in Sweeney. And so I'm sure people are going to be as obsessed with Kit Connor, even though I personally have never heard of this man. Anyways, it's also really exciting because Jack Antonoff, who I'm sure some of my listeners might be aware is like the singer-songwriter alongside Taylor Swift. They're like besties. And so he is going to be doing the music. This will be his Broadway debut, and it will be Rachel Zegler's Broadway debut, and Kit Connor's, of course. It's crazy to think that this is Rachel Zegler's Broadway debut. I think a lot of us, just because she is such a star in the theater community, would have thought Rachel had been on Broadway before, but she hasn't. She's never been on Broadway. She's just done some really, really huge and important work in our community, such as West Side Story. But yeah, it's shocking that this is her Broadway debut. I'm surprised that this is what, well, not really surprised. I feel like Jack Antonoff's connection to the show is going to amplify it so much more. Obviously, this creates a line between Broadway and Taylor Swift. And it asks the question, will Taylor Swift come to Broadway? I think she probably will. I'm sure she's going to support her BFF Jack Antonoff. And so, I mean, I might have to go to that opening night and see Taylor Swift. I'm not even the biggest fan, but also it's just cool. And of course, everybody's obsessed with like the Taylor Swift world. And this is now a part of it. And Broadway has been welcomed into Taylor Swift's empire, I suppose. So that's pretty exciting. I know a lot of people go and see it just because of that connection alone. I bet Kit Connor is probably going to bring in like the general public to see this show. And obviously Romeo and Juliet is just a staple. So that name will get people in. I wonder if Rachel Zegler's name will bring a lot of people in. She was in the Hunger Games, but I don't think so. I don't think that she's super well known / well liked by the general public. I don't think her name is going to bring in the masses, but I do think Jack Antonoff's and Kit Connor's likely will. It is going to be directed by Sam Gold, who has done a ton of huge plays on Broadway. Enemy of the People, that's playing right now. The recent Macbeth that was on, Fun Home, and A Doll's House. Sam Gold directed all of those. So I'm sure that he is a seasoned director. So this will be a beautiful Romeo and Juliet. And then the movement, they don't say choreography, the movement is going to be done by Sonia Taghe, who did the choreography for Moulin Rouge. So she's really awesome. I like her. Sam Gold, the director, released in a statement, quote, "With the presidential election coming up in November, I felt like making a show this fall that celebrates youth and hope and unleashes the anger young people feel about the world they are inheriting," quote. That's a really unique approach. That's actually a really interesting concept, because Rachel Zegler and Kit Connor are going to bring in a younger audience, plus Jack Antonoff, of course. And so that is like kind of a great idea. And I love that. I never would have thought that that's why it was coming. And right now, I think it's going to be a beautiful show. The press images they've already released that kind of give you the look and feel of the show, how this Romeo and Juliet is going to set itself aside from all of its predecessors. I do think that it is going to be really beautiful. And the marketing already looks really, really nice. I feel like it could be a competitor with like the Kit Kat Club, just because it's kind of of a similar classic Broadway vibe in a way. Anyways, I'm excited about this. I'm excited about Rachel Zegler coming to Broadway, and I'm excited about the potential that Jack Antonoff could do more musicals in the future, ? So it says that he is doing music by Jack Antonoff. This revival is a play with music by Jack Antonoff. Okay, so it's not necessarily a musical. It is a play with music. That gives me more questions than answers. Okay, interesting. Well, TBD, I'm sure we'll find out more as this story develops. Moving on, Suffs had their opening night this week. I'm so excited. Y'all, we saw it like just a couple of days before its opening night, and it was the night that they froze the show. And so I'm just elated that they had their opening night, and guess what? These stars stepped out, y'all. It was a star-studded carpet. We had Malala and Hillary Clinton, who are producers of the musical Suffs. We have Melissa McCarthy, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Darren Criss, Ben Platt, Noah Galvin stepped out, Broadway's favorite couple. Sarah Bareilles was there, literal queen, Rachel Brosnahan, and Dylan Mulvaney. And I want to say they stepped out and showed up on this carpet. The outfits were unreal. I feel like a lot of times it's a moment for people to like be really creative with their dress or their suit on these Broadway red carpets. But the cast of Suffs was not playing around. They were giving elegance. They were giving shapely. They were giving glitz. They looked so beautiful. And so I do have a best dressed. I looked at all of their outfits. Hannah Cruz is somewhat a runner-up. Her dress was very gorgeous, but it's no competition for Tisalala Brock. She was so beautiful. Go and look at her dress. It was a champagne glittery number. It fit her so well. And I just thought it was a beautiful dress. So many people looked amazing. I cannot believe Melissa McCarthy was at the carpet. That's so, so cool. So let's get into the reviews of this show because I was anxiously awaiting these. This was one of those nights where I was like, okay, Suffs is opening. I am refreshing that Broadway World review roundup page because how is it doing? I have to know. It sucks that you never know. You know, like you never know what is going to be a hit on Broadway. And Suffs is kind of a hit, which I'm so happy to report. They got 5 medium. You know how we say like Broadway World, they give a thumbs up, a medium thumb, or a thumbs down. Suffs got 5 medium, no thumbs down. Honey, no thumbs down for Suffs, and 12 thumbs up. That's freaking incredible. I'm so happy. So let's read Jesse Green of the New York Times critical review. He gave it like a medium in the middle of the road. Here's what he said, quote, as such, Suffs is already good in both senses, a good show and good for the world. I even shed a few political tears. But to be great, a musical, like a great movement, must grab you by the throat. Suffs too often settles for holding up signs, quote. So that was a middle of the road article. Yeah, he seems like he expected more, possibly. I do see what he's saying. Suffs didn't make me feel like I needed to take to the street right away. It didn't catapult me, but it did move me. It definitely moved me, and it was a nice show. But like Bryn said when she was on the show, it's no Hamilton. It's no competition for Hamilton. And I think a lot of people are drawing that comparison, which I feel like is a little valid. But how are you going to be another Hamilton? If you're aiming your show to do what Hamilton has done, you have unachievable expectations. But a lot of people do compare this show to Hamilton. Frank Rizzo of Variety gave this show a good review, and he says, quote, as writer, Todd smartly avoids the facile men against women tropes and digs deeper into internal challenges within the movement and within the women as individuals. Thanks to the specificity of the writing, music, and lyrics, and remarkable ensemble of women and non-binary actors, the multitude of characters in this densely packed historic narrative are, if not deeply, then at least reasonably well-defined and relatable with their personal doubts, fears, and triumphs. Quote, wait, that had nothing to do with Hamilton. Wait, oh, okay, this is the one that has to do with Hamilton. That was a good review, though, still. I like that review. This is the one that had to do with Hamilton from Sarah Holdren of Vulture, who also gave it a good review. She said, quote, the strains of something less than triumphant were always lurking in Hamilton, which begins with a fist pump to the sky, but ends with the plaintive question, who lives, who dies, who tells your story? But just as young Alice had no time for sweetness, Suffs has no time for wistfulness as it nears its ending. That's because it's not an ending, and there isn't one in sight. As one of her epigraphs, Taub quotes the Talmud, quote, "You are not obliged to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it," quote. Suffs may send us back out into the world, a little bruised, a little somber, but in no way defeated or alone, quote. That's a beautiful way to put it. I love that. It sends us out a little defeated, but not alone. That is true. Sarah Holdren of Vulture, amazing review. I like comparing it to Hamilton because at the end of the day, they are a similar show on Broadway. It's not one of a kind. Although it tells a one-of-a-kind story that we have not heard of before, and a lot of the women and historical figures that it features, we've never heard of, other than Ida B. Wells. That is the only character that I had heard of prior to stepping into those theater doors. Anyways, I'm so proud of Suffs. I'm so excited for the cast. These are remarkable reviews. I'm excited to see, hopefully these good reviews will bring them up in the ranks and they will be a success and last, because this is a show that deserves to be seen and it deserves to last. Way to go, Suffs. I'm so proud of you. Okay, let's get into some fun news stories of the week. So, I don't know if you saw this, but have y'all ever watched the movie Crazy Rich Asians? Because that movie that took the world by storm, it was a huge Oscar movie. It is being turned into a musical. Not will it be turned? No, it is being turned into a Broadway musical. It has been announced this week that Warner Brothers Theater Ventures is developing a musical adaptation of Crazy Rich Asians. So it is going to be directed by John M. Chu. This is probably the biggest part of the story for me. And John M. Chu, you may be aware, is also directing the Wicked movie. So he has some musical connections, and now he has a Broadway connection. This will be his first show that he is doing on Broadway, and he will be directing it. He also directed the movie Crazy Rich Asians. So I love the fact that they're bringing in that same director to do the stage adaptation, because I just feel like a lot of the story stays intact when you do something like that. And yeah, we also know who is going to be developing the music and the book. So Helen Park, who did K-pop the musical, is doing the composition and score of the show. The book will be done by Leah Nanko Winkler, who worked on Schmigadoon. Now that's interesting. So she's another person going from like TV and film to stage, but obviously if you did Schmigadoon, it's pretty similar. So she's going to be taking care of the book. And now the lyrics are going to be tag teamed by Singaporean songwriter Tat Tong and Amanda Green, who did Hands on a Hard Body. So this is really exciting. We don't know when it is going to be coming to Broadway, when it's going to have a workshop or anything like that. So this is really exciting. I liked this movie. I think it's exciting to have an Asian story on Broadway. A lot of times those don't do well, but I think this might be a perfect formula to bring people in to see it, because it was such a huge movie of its time back in 2018 when it came out. And it was a gorgeous movie. If you haven't seen the wedding scene from Crazy Rich Asians, go and watch it. It is beautiful. It's magical. It's mystical. There's water on the floor, all of these cherry blossoms encompassing the altar. It's beautiful. And I think that replicated on Broadway is going to be incredibly stunning. And that is all we know. We don't know when it's coming. We don't know where it's coming. That's the lot of it. We know who's behind it and that it is being developed. And when Warner Brothers says they're doing something, they are doing something. They also did, I remember talking about it recently, a show that they brought. Of course, it is not going to come to, I think it was Miss Doubtfire. Yeah, they did, they had a ton of shows that they wanted to develop for Broadway, and Miss Doubtfire didn't do very well. And so maybe they kind of pulled back, but now they're ready to go back in full force. And with John M. Chu behind it, I think it's going to be great. Oh my God. I just had this thought. Okay, what if Bowen Yang is in it? Oh my God, I would love that. Bowen Yang from SNL. I adore him. And he is in the Wicked movie with John M. Chu. And now that he's developing Crazy Rich Asians, maybe Bowen Yang will be on Broadway. I can totally see that happening. He goes to Broadway shows somewhat relatively often, whether it's with Ariana Grande on his side at Spamalot or not. He does go to Broadway shows. So maybe this is the next step for him in his entertainment career. I don't want him to leave SNL. Obviously, if he did a Broadway show, he could not do SNL. There's literally no way. So this might be like a bit of a Sophie's choice, but Bowen Yang come to Broadway in Crazy Rich Asians. I was also thinking maybe Eva Noblezada could be in this show. I think Gatsby is going to be a success, and she does have a history of being very loyal to her shows. But I could see her being in Crazy Rich Asians and being that lead woman. And I just think that would be so genius because she is like where she goes, success follows. She is just such a talent. So that is really cool. I love that thought of Bowen Yang being in Crazy Rich Asians. Can we please bring Bowen Yang to Broadway, please? Okay, guys, our last news story for today is a quick one. It is also really exciting, though. I love tracking what is going on at the Hollywood Bowl. It's an annual show that gets put on, and typically it's been a Broadway show, but as of late, I feel like it's really just been like Disney shows, which I know rakes in the money, but like, come on. I remember they did Rent a long time ago, and that was the one that Aaron Tveit and Vanessa Hudgens were in. There's just been a lot of iconic performances and theater that has come out of the Hollywood Bowl, and lately it's just been Disney. Like last year, I think was when they did like the Encanto, or maybe that was 2 years ago. But this year it's Disney again. We're doing the Lion King, which you just have to like, you have to be okay with it. I love Lion King. I love the movie and all of that. It just, when these shows are going through an anniversary, it is so overload. Like Wicked 20th anniversary, Wicked was doing everything. And I'm sure for the non-Wicked fans that was like, oh my God, like it's enough of Wicked. But are there really any people out there who don't love Wicked? I don't know. I've never met them and I don't want to meet them. But it has kind of felt that way. It's a little bit of overload with Lion King celebrating their 20th or 30th anniversary. But that is a huge milestone, so we have to celebrate it. So Lion King is going to be done at the Hollywood Bowl this year. But hey, we are going to have some great performers. I'm surprised to learn, though, it's not going to be like a theatrical performance of The Lion King. It is going to be a concert done by Hans Zimmer, and I believe the stars are just going to be coming out and singing the show, and then the movie is going to be playing in the background. That's the way they've made it sound. So Nathan Lane, who was Pumbaa, is going to be performing. Jennifer Hudson will be in attendance. Billy Eichner will be performing as Timon, which is such a great casting. I totally see Billy Eichner as Timon. If you don't know Billy Eichner, he is iconic for his show that I think is still on Netflix called Billy on the Street. He's so freaking funny. I adore him, and I can totally see him killing the game as Timon. Anyways, there are more announcements of the casting to come, but this is going to be taking place from May 24th to May 25th. Everybody is encouraged to attend in costume. So I don't know if I have a lot of listeners over there in LA, but if I do, Hollywood Bowl should be pretty cool. 30th year anniversary. Lots of stars will be in attendance. And it's going to be a night of celebrating one of the longest running Broadway shows ever. And an iconic movie that obviously everybody loves. So that wraps up our Broadway news of the week, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Go and meet me at the stage door if you are a Broadway bestie on Patreon. It's never too late to join the Patreon. If you're interested in it, it is $5.99 a month, and you get exclusive content from me. We do after chats, which is called Meet Me at the Stage Door, and those are typically a little more unhinged. We talk about my Broadway boyfriend of the week. We talk about what song you should be adding to your Broadway playlist that week, and we also get into the nitty-gritty about the shows that I have seen of the week, which I definitely will be doing this week. I am looking forward to it because Meet Me at the Stage Door is more of a safe space. It's the listeners who aren't going to judge me, who are not just like a one-time listener, you know, who listen here and there. It's the people who know me and know that I'm not just crapping on a show just for the sake of it. So go and meet me at the Stage Door. It's going to be a fun one today. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. Leave me a rate and review wherever you are listening today. Share this episode with your Broadway bestie because I am sure that they are going to enjoy it just as much as you do. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at From the Mezzanine Podcast. And I have really been having fun on TikTok lately. I've started doing these Broadway interviews pretty regularly and they're a hit. So go and follow me over there. And I will see you next Tuesday. Bye.